one other issue that I think falls under the let them eat cake mindset. And that is, who gets a pardon, right? If you suck up to Trump, you get a pardon. If you make it seem as if you've been politically persecuted, you get a pardon. It was not. We don't think it was anything that the founders ever wanted to see the pardon used, but this is something that clearly has to get changed, because this has been abused to the point where I think Donald Trump has single-handedly undone the rule of law in the United States just by the way he manages this pardon nonsense. So let's start with, anybody that calls themselves a political prisoner, Donald Trump will somehow figure out a way to pardon you. Mass clemency for the January 6th participants on day one is still one of the most alarming decisions he's made. And we've seen multiple recidivisms on this, where people that were convicted, pardoned, have committed more crimes. We got the guy that was arrested for trying to kill Hakeem Jeffries. So you have that. Then there were the separate commutations and pardons for the head of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Proud Boys, Enrique Tarrio. And how did they make their plea for a pardon publicly? They declared themselves political prisoners. In fact, that's what Stuart Rhodes said. He set the narrative, told the judge, and I'll quote directly, "I'm a political prisoner, and like Donald Trump, my only crime is opposing those who are destroying our country." That's how he asked for his pardon. That's exactly what Donald Trump wants to hear. And you know what what Enrique Tarrio wrote in a letter? His lawyer wrote in a letter. Henry is nothing more than a proud American that believes in true conservative values. These folks aren't even making a case. These guys are getting pardons without even claiming they've reformed, without claiming they've already, that, hey, they've learned their lesson. No, they're saying they were aggrieved. They were victims of this system in the same way Donald Trump was a victim on that front. But it's not just that. Take a look at the number of people that have received pardons that were former members of Congress. They're almost all Republican. And those that aren't Republican are those that denounce the Democratic Party, like Rod Blagojevich, in order to get it. So you've got George Santos. He's the most recent one. So how did he beg for his pardon? Marjorie Taylor Greene. She sent a public letter to the White House calling Santos's 7-year sentence, quote, a grave injustice and judicial overreach. And here's how she made her argument for a pardon from Trump. Many of my colleagues have committed far worse offenses than Mr. Santos, yet have faced zero criminal charges. Boy, that is pure whataboutism, right? Like that Santos somehow deserves, but it's a let them eat cake, right? The rules for thee, but not for me. And that's, I think, the pattern that's developing, that if your financial life isn't improving, this is really going to piss you off. All right. The other people, let's look at the various folks that he's been giving pardons to. Former member of Congress, former Republican Governor John Rowland. He was pardoned for 2 separate federal corruption cases. Michael Grimm, former New York congressman, he was pardoned for his tax fraud conviction. Brian Kelsey, former state senator in Tennessee, pardoned for campaign finance fraud. You have a Michelle Fiore, a Nevada Republican, and member of the Las Vegas City Council, pardoned for fraud before she was even sentenced. She hadn't even gotten her sentence yet. And how did they beg? For every single one of them, their public defense, their ask was that their prosecution was a political hit job, that it was a weaponized DOJ. Grimm has been dining out on that claim for over a decade. So the pardon was the final stamp of approval. And then you get the attempt at the 2-tiered system. The point is, everybody's figured out how you publicly ask for a pardon from Donald Trump. It is not that you have paid your dues. It is not that you've learned your lesson. It's that, like him, you were persecuted. You were aggrieved. And so when you see this sort of, and this is where I just, look, this stuff is bad for the Republic. It's bad for the future of democracy. My concern is, once you set these precedents, that it becomes a slippery slope, and the next president, regardless of party, will rationalize doing something similar by using an egregious thing that Trump has done as their defense. Well, it's not as bad as this, or it's not as bad as this. We are setting horrendous standards for the rule of law. We are sending horrendous standards for our elected officials. If you are not held criminally account for defrauding taxpayers and abusing your elected office, and essentially, if your side is in power, you can get away and do whatever you want because you'll be able to get a pardon. That's not just we're already at a kleptocracy as far as the Trump run government, right? Which is it's a pay as you go. If you pay him in some form or another, you will get preferential treatment, right? The best example is Qatar. This is a country that arguably has been on more of an enemy than an ally to the United States. They offered aid and protection to Hamas, aid and protection to the Taliban, two entities that were literally fighting against the United States or its allies. But one $500 million plane later, and Qatar is now considered as important of a security ally as France is. All right, which is arguably our oldest ally. Where I think there's real political peril here, this stuff's indefensible. You know how I know it's indefensible? There's not a single Republican that in elective office that will defend it. It will just say, oh, you guys in the media, whenever you ask questions, they just sort of flip it by attacking the media, or you'll hear these questions like, well, hey, his supporters love when he says these things, and his supporters still love him. The rationale is, well, it's fine. It's his base. But there is an accumulation of this stuff. And if your life isn't getting better, but he's pardoning convicts who are able to bribe him, if your life's not getting better, but he's, hanging out, raising, hundreds of millions of dollars in a slush fund from his inauguration, shaking down corporate executives that if they want preferential treatment on tariffs, they give some extra money to the ballroom fund or to the inaugural fund. By the way, with the inaugural fund, he raised some $250 million. We have no idea. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants with that money. For all we know, that's just his expense account now, right? I promise you, my guess is he doesn't spend any of his own money on anything. I mean, that's the thing with him. He is no doubt it somehow the inaugural fund pays for stuff. The building fund will pay for stuff. The library will pay for stuff. You know who won't pay for anything? Donald John Trump. And that's self-enrichment. This is, I think he's playing, I know he thinks he can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he won't lose a supporter. I think he's really testing the premise here. He's knocking down the White House. It is true, the most recognizable building in America. He's already put car dealership American flags up there, which kind of look tacky. I'm not going to criticize him for being patriotic, but do we have to be tacky about it? Does it have to look like I'm driving down an interstate in Texas where there's always these competitions between car dealerships? This is the one thing I've gotten to see in Dallas. On the road to DFW Airport, it's just this parade of flags that if they ever sort of flew off the flagpoles, it would probably engulf multiple cars at once. These flags are so big. I think he's creating a huge sort of us versus them. Is he with you or is he with them? And right now, he is a them person. He is in the let them eat cake mode. He is in the elite mode. He is somebody who has benefited from running against the supposed elites. But now he has created his own set of elites who play by their own set of rules. And I think if chicken is twice the price, it's harder to get a car loan, it's harder to find a home. This stuff is going to come across when you start to aggregate it all together. Instead of lowering your healthcare costs, he's been focused on his ballroom, paving the Rose Garden, knocking down the East Wing, enriching himself with crypto, buying land in foreign countries, getting hotel deals. You start to put all that together, and you're running on but who's looking out for you? The populist, the person that won with populism, could see his political career go down in flames via that kind of populism. There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/ToddCast or dial pound law, pound 529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win.